The conservatory, he swore, was closed to the public. The calendar square slipped into our evening at 6:11 p.m., neat as a gloved hand. Donor supper, conservatory, late. 2 minutes later, Wren texted, "Don't wait up. Board wants to preview the orchid wing after hours. Proud of me." Read he uses the heart when the rest of the sentence prefers a dimmer switch. I turned the flame under the pasta down to the kind of simmer that calls itself maturity, and looked out at the park where the glass dome conservatory crouched like a jeweled beetle. The dome's ribs were lit in a patient green, the kind of green that thinks money has a moral. The calendar square pulsed once and pretended to be obedient. I rinsed a spoon I didn't need, and told the stove we were not auditioning for tragedy. At 6:42 my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize and a message that knew me anyway. If he's walking the board, why did he just badge the East Conservatory at 6:37 and take the catwalk? Staff gate behind the potting shed. The night guard owes me a cigarette. It was signed with a single letter, S, as if the alphabet had slid me a key. Silas runs nights for the conservatory with the calm of a man who has convinced storms to reschedule. He and Wren trade competence like old friends swap jackets. He and I have shared 2 cigarettes under the rain chain, and a laugh that understood which windows have ears. We have not touched. I remember not touching more clearly than most men remember the opposite. "Why tell me?" I wrote. "Because your calendar is polite and my door alarms aren't," he sent. Because he looked up before he swiped. People only look up on that catwalk when they want oxygen. Because the orchids are not a place for choreography. The staff gate behind the potting shed wore a weathered sign that said "No public access" in a font that loved rules more than nuance. Silas leaned against the latch like he had been hired to make it look handsome. He lifted the bar with one hand, slipped me through, and let it fall back into the night as if it had chosen me. "East Wing is this way," he said. "Don't knock. The orchids dislike etiquette." "You texted," I said. "I opened a door," he said, and his mouth did not smile because he is good at his job. "You can handle the grammar." The service corridor smelled like wet soil and old patience. The conservatory's heartbeat, a low hum from the circulation system, laid itself under my step. A narrow stair climbed to the catwalk that laced the dome like a sentence diagram. The east wing opened around me, arched glass, steel, fogging nozzles, hanging roots like strings of vowels. Below, the orchid beds made a shadowed map where donors like to imagine their names will one day sprout. Wren stood near a balustrade not designed for anyone's mistakes. Jacket off, shirt open, one button past credible, posture tuned for an audience that didn't know it was being cast. Opposite him, resting 2 fingers lightly on the railing in a practiced suggestion of control, was Emery Pike, developer donor, a rumor with cufflinks. Emery's hand hovered near Wren's wrist, not touching, because proximity photographs better than contact when you want credit for restraint. "Board preview must be intimate tonight," I said from the curve of the catwalk, keeping my voice low because plants can taste sound. Wren turned. For a beat the truth borrowed his face. Then his public version returned from wherever it keeps its ties. "Noah," he said, "I how did." "Silas likes nouns," I said. "I like doors." Emery gave me a smooth smile fitted for cocktail receptions. "We were discussing humidity targets," he said. "Delicate species require care." His fingers brushed a leaf without bruising it, the way men brush rooms they intend to own. "I prefer care that comes with witnesses," I said. Wren took a step toward me, then didn't, because the catwalk believed in decorum. "We were going over the nomming proposal," he said. "He thinks Pike Orchid House has a cadence." "Cadence is cheaper than conscience," I said. Emery lifted his palms in the universal language of men who can afford to concede nothing and appear gracious. 2 minutes, he said. Use them. The plants will forgive you. I'm unsure about the guard. He drifted along the curve toward the junction where a ladder drops to the fern tunnel. As he passed, 2 fingertips touched Wren's shoulder, punctuation, not persuasion. The catwalk accepted his weight without opinion. Wren watched me the way men watch a storm when they want it to arrive and spare them. I was going to text you, he said, softer now, using the voice he keeps for morning light and the soft under my jaw. After. I wanted to know I could leave this room without being dragged out of it. You wanted to be caught, I said, not punished, caught. He breathed out like the Foggers had briefly learned kindness. Yes, he said, and did not pretend he meant anything else. There is a temperature at which grammar retires. I closed the small distance, found his mouth, and gave the glass something honest to reflect. He kissed back with the relief of a man who had been clenching his jaw into usefulness. He tasted like donor gin and mint from the lobby water dispenser. My thumb found the hinge of his jaw and pressed. He made that involuntary sound I keep receipts for. His hand slid under my shirt and laid itself flat between my shoulder blades like a pledge no ledger can carry. We didn't undress. The catwalk would have charged extra and the orchids would have taken notes. He broke the kiss first because he knows where heat decides to become narrative. He rested his forehead against mine, 2 breaths synchronized like sprinklers. I didn't kiss him, he said. I wanted to want to. I texted Sila's. You did, I said. He prefers oxygen to gossip. Emery had stopped 20 feet away, face turned toward a stand of ghost orchids that had learned theater from the city. He looked back at us as if checking whether the light had improved. We'll finalize tomorrow, he said to Wren, and to me with a politeness that didn't quite forgive. You're efficient. I practice exits, I said. He took the ladder down, shoes finding rungs with the careful certainty of a man who has never fallen where money could see. The catwalk remembered him long enough to stop vibrating. Sila's materialized in the shadow of the junction the way good staff materialize, present, not intrusive. He didn't step out into the light. Sprinklers cycle in 3, he murmured. If you don't want to be the wet part of a story, I recommend a door. Thank you, Wren said. Silas's gaze flicked over both our faces and then softened the way men's gazes do when they remember the price of honesty. Use the service stare, he said. I'll teach the camera to admire a night-blooming Sirius for a quarter hour. We moved carefully along the rail, holding on to the cool of the steel. The service stare remembered our feet and did not argue. At the base, the air was rainforest thick and clean. A closed blossom, queer little universe of petals, regarded us like a librarian who knew our names in school and never got over it. Back at the staff gate, Silas lifted the latch again and let the park's evening swallow the hush of plants. He didn't ask for a report. He did not pretend he hadn't done something that cost him nothing and mattered. You two look better in rooms that don't charge admission, he said. Go home. We walked the long way across the park instead of calling a car. The conservatory breathed behind us, lit like a cathedral that knows what worship is for. On the bridge, Wren touched the small of my back like a man who hadn't paid enough for the right words and was improvising for survival. We went upstairs without inventing speeches. In the kitchen, the pasta tolerated reheating. We ate standing like mammals and let the window do the rest. He told me Emery had been sculpting a compliment into a contract for a month, and he had helped because selection feels like love when usefulness has emptied your pockets. I told him Silas had texted because some men prefer oxygen to salvage. He didn't ask if Silas and I had ever been unprofessional. I didn't tell him the exact way Silas's mouth looks when he lights the second cigarette. We didn't fight. There was no theater left to sell. Later, in bed, we left an inch of cool so the day could find somewhere else to be, and then we let it surrender. He kissed me the way good sentences land, precise, grateful, without ornament. I put my mouth where his jaw loses confidence and told it a morning we'd be able to afford. It was heat without witnesses. The building minded its plumbing. The city practiced weather for someone else. He fell asleep with his hand on my wrist, not as proof, not as claim, just as a way to count what we've decided to keep. Morning managed coffee, bread, and a silence we didn't have to bribe. He tied a tie over a throat I intend to retire with patience and kissed me like he had already arrived. At the door he said my name the way east windows say yes to kitchen tables. I said his back like a map you don't need a signal to read. At 9:12 a text arrived from a number saved under a single letter. No footage left the east wing. I let the camera fall in love with a serious. Consider it pollination. As I sent, you're very proud of your pollination. He replied, I'm proud of your exit. No punctuation. Correct. By noon, the conservatory's social posted a photo of board members under the glass ribs with a caption about stewardship and wonder. I scrolled past. It wasn't our room. At 1:09, Ren sent me a picture of our kitchen table with the plant we keep refusing to let die basking in a square of factual sun. Room exists, he wrote. I believed him because the glass wore my fingerprints, and because somewhere a night manager with a moral imagination was explaining to a guard why certain alarms prefer to be thought of as shy. That evening we burned dinner and ate it anyway. When he kissed me at the bedroom door, it wasn't apology or receipt. It was a decision with heat in it. The week did what weeks do, pretended to be inevitable. Emery sent Ren a revised pledge with fewer adjectives and more commas. Ren brought it home and set it on the table without unsealing it, like a man refusing to let paper rehearse his mouth. We lived inside the pause. He cooked more simply and smiled without rehearsing. I said yes to fewer obligations that thought they were compliments. The plant on the table thickened a leaf, and, in a fit of encouragement, we repotted it together. Two men pretending they know what depth is good for a root. 3 nights later, the conservatory hosted an actual board preview, public faces, real photographers, an honest rope line. We went together on purpose. Silas nodded once from the door like an usher who has chosen sides. Emery performed generosity to thunderous applause. The ghost orchids did not clap. Ren stood where he needed to and shook hands he was paid to shake. When a reporter asked about legacy, he pointed at the night-blooming Sirius, which had the audacity to open early, and said, "Some things are only beautiful because they're brief and private. The trick isn't to possess them. It's to show up at the right hour." After, he took my wrist lightly, the way he does when we agree to be mammals, and steered us out past the potting shed and into a park that had practiced being dark. We walked home. The city tried its stories on other couples. Our calendar stayed blank because we were learning how to take turns with the oxygen. A week after that, a gossip account posted a blurry photo of a man on a catwalk and another man not far away, captioned with something about influence blooming at night. The comments invented a dozen versions of us and sold them to each other for free. I scrolled past because they didn't have our fingerprints. Ren texted me a picture instead. Our kitchen table again, the plant more arrogant now, leaves glossy as if they had learned confidence. Room exists, he wrote. It still does. On some nights the city behaves and on others it chews its leash, but the room is there, and the door opens when we ask it to. When sleep remembers us, his hand finds my wrist, and I count the small animal under his fingers. I don't know whether orchids keep score. I do know what a catwalk feels like under your feet when you've decided to survive. I know how glass looks when it has just witnessed someone choose you. And I know how Silas's simple line, "I opened a door," is the only biography I want for this version of us. Tomorrow's square on the calendar is empty. We're leaving it that way. In this city, I've learned, that is the one scandal worth paying for. Two men who pick the same door, close it gently, and teach the room to breathe.